Dear colleagues, good morning. We continue our working day at the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. The subject is strengthening relations between Israel and Ukraine. Our guest is Emiliya Margolina, representative NGO Israel Friends of Ukraine, and also art space graphic designer of this organization, Efim Brantman. Please, dear colleagues, you're welcome. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation to the briefing. We've come from Israel, our delegation. I'd like to tell you some things about our organization, Israeli Friends of Ukraine. This name speaks for itself. Our organization was founded, even not founded, but it appeared against the background of the events happening on Maidan more than 2 years ago, when we first saw students' arrival, and then after some time tragic events started happening. We saw there were victims, and from our team we had relatives, families, friends. But our volunteers team formed at that time because it wanted to help very much, and it was formed not only by people originated from Ukraine, but Russia, Georgia, Lithuania. When we saw the situation in Ukraine, people started to form a volunteer team, and this team started acting. I remember on the 7th of March, we were standing near the Russian embassy in Tel Aviv, having a protesting meeting against Kremlin aggression. And then we learned then that Israeli volunteers wanted to welcome, to receive heavily wounded people from Ukraine. And we tried to negotiate things with hospitals. We helped to interpret, and we brought necessary things to hospitals. And that gave a rise to our movement that turned into an organization. And we understood that sending humanitarian assistance forms the smallest part of what we are able to do. And if we want to do more, then we have to register as an organization. Currently, we are implementing projects of a different nature: the cultural trend, the education trend. We have a medical project. We bring Ukrainian doctors to Israel for skills upgrading. More than 20 doctors underwent such training. This is a wide-scale program in Ukraine. We hope that this experience exchange will really help Ukraine at this hard period of war. Why we are here today, why our organization has come to Ukraine. We have come to the conference dedicated to the 75th anniversary of the Babin Yar tragedy. This is a very important event to us, and it's important to be here. We are grateful to Ukrainian Jewish organization partners who are facilitators of this event in Ukraine. Together with this organization, we, before the conference started, we held a seminar in Tel Aviv, also on this topic for people for Israeli people, Russian-speaking people. The geography of attendance was very wide, and we invited a guest from Ukraine, a historian. It was very useful to listen to his viewpoint on the things happening in Ukraine today, and at that time we discussed relations between Ukrainians and Jewish during the Second World War. We had speakers among Israeli journalists, historians, and researchers. This seminar it became a ground for an idea. The discussion was very hot and very interesting. Regardless of the complicated topic, the idea about a common project between Ukraine and Israel, touching upon an education field, a project for children, for school children in Ukraine and Israel. We'd like to carry out seminars aiming at demonstrating and teaching general history to children, history of Ukraine and Israel, to familiarize them with the culture of Ukraine and Israel. We'd like to carry out these seminars both on the territory of Ukraine and Israel, because we think that the cooperation with this new generation, with teenagers of 15 and 16, should be very fruitful. And these children can build a new dialogue, thus opening a new page in the relationship of the both countries. We had a very interesting screening, several episodes from a documentary of Boris Marcir, who spoke at this conference. It was extremely interesting, so we are grateful to him. We saw an episode which has nobody seen yet, and it will be demonstrated only in October at a cinema festival in Haifa. The episodes were very hard to watch. I'd like to tell you something about our plans. One of the projects we plan to carry out soon, and that is important for us. This is a joint project with the Global Ukrainians Organization in Ukraine, but we will hold this event in Tel Aviv in autumn. This conference, even not conference but a business forum, we are creating a ground for networking between activists of Ukraine and Israeli business people who are starting, who are launching startups. We want to focus on innovation and education topic. I think that Israel can share a lot of experience with its Ukrainian colleagues. I believe that this forum is currently very important because it signifies a modern scale cooperation between the two countries. I hope very much that this will not be just a meeting between the colleagues, but also a push to the development and implementation of real projects, business projects, startups, and also cooperation in the field of volunteership. I also think it would be interesting to tell about a project happening, which is being carried out in Ukraine. Most of our projects are being carried out in Israel, and we started a project, Share Israel project in Ukraine. This project is about receiving by Ukraine Israeli specialists from design, from art, from culture, and these experts can share the experience with the Ukrainian colleagues. Our partners are very kindly giving us a site or ground for these meetings. Israeli specialists tell the Ukrainian colleagues about his experience, their experience. For example, Efim Brantman, our graphic designer, spoke and shared his experience about creativity in the design area. We met a lot of very extraordinary people, and I'd like to say that we invite everyone, all the people from Israel who would like to come to Ukraine. We want them to take part in the project. The participation will be free of charge, and it is aimed at the implementation of networking between experts located in different countries. I'd like to pass the floor to Efim Brantman. He'll tell us about how it was and how this area is developing in Ukraine. Good morning. After I learned about this project, many people who live in Israel came to Ukraine and they shared their experience in an informal surrounding, using a creative ground. So I was asked to participate this time and to share my experience in the field of design, creative design. I graduated from the Jerusalem Academy of Arts 13 years ago. I worked in different areas of animated cartoons, advertising, web design, graphic design, everything related to visual communication. It was very interesting to take part in the event and to tell people about my experience. Also, it is worth noting that after I joined the organization Israeli Friends of Ukraine, I started coming to Ukraine very often. And I was lucky to meet many people dealing with the same things that I, for example, the leader of Vinta Group, and he is a very rather famous artist and journalist. We had a very good communication and we became friends, personal friends. He came to Israel and he gave a creative evening presentation. It was interesting to exchange experience with him. Apart from the fact that I know that graphic design is at a rather high level in Ukraine, and experts are very skillful, and when I communicated with the design students, I noticed a slight difference in the style of teaching, schooling. Maybe it would be interesting to introduce some innovations to create art academies and institutes related to visual communication, design, and other fields. I'd like to share with you some specification. Emiliya told us about the plan, about the fact that the business forum organized jointly with Ukraine will happen in autumn. I cannot give you exact data, but very soon you can learn about this on our web page. This is a rather wide subject, and it is worth giving special clarifications. When we have a detailed program, it will have a business trend, a volunteership trend, education innovation. I think that as soon as we have exact dates, we'll give them to you. On Facebook, you can find us on Facebook, Israeli Friends of Ukraine page, and it contains all information about all the projects happening, both in Israel and Ukraine. And also I want to make a small remark about a new project. We are launching it right now. This is a media project. We want to start an online newspaper which sheds light upon events of our organization in Israel, and also will give a special ground for educators, for people working in the sphere of culture in Ukraine. I want you to know that we are looking forward to initiatives available in Ukraine. If someone is listening to this program, please contact us on Facebook, call us. All ideas you have related to cooperation between the two countries will be considered. And an important thing I want to say, this idea sounded several times, and during all these readings at the conference, it would be nice if Ukraine also create some initiatives an initiative like in Israel. Do you have any questions, Serhiy Mirchuk, Ukrainian Crisis Media Center? Emily, dear colleagues, thank you very much for coming here, Emily and Efim. I liked your initiative very much about common learning of the history of Ukraine and Israel, concerning the past that unites us in the context of the fact that Ukraine is discussing very many disputable moments, for example, with Poland, and we would like to know about these lessons, how these lessons run the experience of these seminars. We would like to learn about that. Do you have any address? I think that first of all we'll have a slightly new format. We had common seminars with Ukrainians and Jewish people. Among our activists, there are people who worked in the field of the Jewish education, Sukhnut. They have a rich experience on how to work with young people. But first of all, this is the so-called Asbara, explanation. To understand that, we should know that very many Jewish young people learned about their roots at the age of 16 or 20, so they needed clarification about their history, who they are, and so on. We have seminars of various level and various nature. I think that it could be something quite new, because these two subjects have to be united, combined, and different opinions should be given. I'd like to have more such spokespersons like Vasil Versevich, who has a very objective viewpoint on what is going on now and in the past. So the young people should decide for themselves how they perceive this history of the past, and they should be given an opportunity to build a dialogue right now, not only about history, culture and traditions, but about how these countries are living now in terms of economy, education and so on. So these countries should be shown to each other. Israeli people should see Ukraine and Ukrainian people should see Israel. Emiliya, you started your activity helping Ukrainian people since the time of Maidan, and you continue doing this right now. How did the number of supporters increase in Israel in terms of the events in Ukraine? This is a good question. Thank you. I believe that the number of supporters has increased. It is increasing, and we noticed that it's important for people to have this initiative. They have an address where they can come, because actually people were very stressed. They didn't know what to do when these events started, but they didn't know how to do it correctly. Not everyone could buy a ticket, a plane ticket, and to come to Ukraine to do something physically. That's why we have become such an address when people learn that there is such a location and an organization, and they can render an effective assistance, which will be even more effective when we have more people. So these people are very glad to have this initiative. A number of people is increasing because, as I said, we implement cultural projects that engage people who even probably didn't know what about the events in Ukraine. We involve these people to a festival, Ukrainian festival. They come to us to taste some Ukrainian dishes, and when they learn about it, they come to us and they ask about possible assistance. Not only Ukrainian people with Ukrainian roots come to us, Russian-speaking people, also summary people who were born in Israel, so they show their desire they offer their assistance they want to help. So we also invite representatives of French Cultural Center in Israel. We hosted the Saakashvili Ballet. We all engage everyone who wants to support this initiative. And a final question. how did the information awareness change? How has information awareness changed about Ukraine's events? What are the channels or the sources that give you information about the events in Ukraine? First of all, we need to say that at the first place, we speak about the Russian-speaking audience. We are talking about it right now. The Russian-speaking audience there are also Russian channels. Unfortunately, we cannot help it, and a certain part of the population consume the information broadcasted by the Russian channels, but also we have an Israeli ninth Russian-speaking channel that broadcasts rather objective information, and it all the time it shows reports about what's happening now and in the past, and also showed the conference dedicated to the Baba Yar and about the events in the east of Ukraine. As to the Hebrew-speaking press, of course, this sector is not very wide, but the Israeli people with whom I communicate know, as compared to what we had 5 or 10 years ago, they know that there is the Ukrainian and the Russian languages and the Ukrainian and the Russian cultures, and that Ukraine is having war currently, and with whom it is at war. This information is more present. I think that it is owing to the fact that many Israelis come to Ukraine with different reasons, for the reason of businesses and other links. I must say that they have sympathy with Ukraine right now, and we are very glad to know that. I hope that our activity will promote a greater interest of the Hebrew-speaking press in these events. Thank you, our dear colleagues. Unfortunately, we don't have much time for further discussion. I would like to wish you good luck and hope to see you later. Dear colleagues, next event will happen at 11 o'clock.